Hey guys, before we begin our awesome conversation with Herbalist Christina, I would like to make an announcement. We are hiring. We are looking for another active podcast member. We need help to grow the podcast to be all that we would like it to be. Ellen and I have been doing this for like 5 years. And we just want to take it to the next level. And we're looking for a person who really believes in the project, help us do that. And we are calling on we're going to you, our listeners, the people who follow us. So let us know. You can email us. You can message me on Facebook or Instagram. You can leave a comment in a YouTube video if you want. This is my cat, Eugene. If you see him behind me, I don't know what he's doing. So yeah, please, 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 everything. If you're interested in being in a podcast, on a podcast, hosting, editing, social media, camera work, this is unpaid right now, but with your help, hopefully we can start to generate some revenue for the podcast. And that's important not only financially for all of us, but in order to take the podcast on the road outside of where we live. We're fortunate to have lots of herbal events and other things right where we live, but we really would like to branch out, and that also costs money. And I'm working full time. I would love to not work full time at another job, but like this for me, my full time job, that is the dream. So anyway, long story short, please let us know. And we appreciate everybody's support as it is. Thank you so much for listening and watching and sharing and commenting and everything else you do. So, all right, on with the interview. Bye.
The earth regenerates. We are the earth. We are creatures of the earth, and we have that power, that vital force to also regenerate. And when we use herbs in Vitalist herbalism, we think about it just a little bit differently. It's not like, what herb can I take to soothe inflammation or to address the symptom, but rather, how can I take herbs, a collection of herbs and foods and potentially, nutrients that are missing to create that vital force flow and have the body heal itself.
In some native languages, the term for plants translates to those who take care of us. Robin Wall Kimmerer, Breeding Sweetgrass. Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Braverman.
And I'm Ellen Selm.
And welcome to our podcast, Stories from the Earth,
where we explore humankind's relationship and connection with the natural world.
We'd like to invite you to support the podcast you love. Every little bit helps, which is a small donation. You can be part of something bigger. Head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/stories from the earth, and choose to donate $1, $5, or $10. Every dollar brings us closer to our dreams. You can also follow us at Patreon for free now, so that's cool. Keep up with what we're up to. If you are not into subscriptions, you can always buy us a coffee through Ko-Fi, which is ko-fi.com/stories from the earth podcast, which is a one-time $5 donation. Your support will help us take the show on the road, bring you on-site interviews and reviews from herb farms, schools, conferences, and all kinds of amazing herbal and earthy places. This is just the beginning, and with your help, we're working towards making this podcast our full-time passion. If you sign up for a monthly newsletter, please check your other email folders. I've had a lot of people saying that it goes into the promotion folders. And also, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at storiesfromtheearth@gmail.com with your questions, thoughts, stories, or ideas for future episodes.
Today, we are going to be speaking with Asheville, North Carolina area herbalist Christina Bertelli. The primary focus of Christina's work is holistic pelvic health. helping people recover from recurrent UTIs, bacterial vaginosis, yeast, HPV, HSV. She specializes in PMS, fibroids, cysts, pregnancy loss, abortion, and post-pill syndrome. Christina's hope and goal for all of her clients is to help them find their regenerative spark, to heal and regain their well-being. So Christina, can you tell us more about yourself? Describe how you got interested in herbalism. What sparked the interest? Why did you become an herbalist?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to share that story. And gosh, it goes back a while now. So before I was an herbalist, I was a wilderness guide and also wilderness outdoor educator. And those were slightly different, but both involved living outside, which is super magical and certainly a part of my path in moving towards herbalism. And let me tell you, the food was really, really harsh on your gut. A lot of dehydrated foods and non-foods, things that you can pack in your backpack and will keep for a while. So not really fresh ingredients. And I did that for a while and really destroyed my gut. I gotta say, combination with, I usually point towards the bad food, but we can't forget the bad water. A lot of this was in southern Utah. I just remember sticking my Nalgene in this muddy lake and then looking over and seeing the cow like pooping in the same spot.
Oh no!
2 meters away. I was like, cool. So I just didn't think the same way I do now. It was the only water we had, and we just like threw some iodine tablets in that like chocolate milk and drank it. So I'm sure that had an impact on my gut in addition to that nasty food. So that was like the precursor that led to this, evolutionary shift in my career timeline and also just my body. So it wasn't immediate, but led to severe pain that like really debilitating that got labeled as irritable bowel syndrome and given a pill for it, but it didn't really work. And I was just like, what am I going to do? And it really came into clear view that the only thing that I could do was do something myself. Like, in other words, I couldn't have someone else fix this for me. So this need for change was like solely in my own lap. So at that point, I'd say like this book that my mom gave me when I was a teenager came out, The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra. I started looking into that and recognizing there was a lot of wisdom in herbalism. So I pretty much just applied to herbal medicine school from that point and realized I knew this was a path that I needed for my own healing. And I also felt clear that it was going to be a meaningful path to help others. Because I was shocked that I wasn't getting help that I needed from my doctor. And weaving in with that, like I was giving a lot of meds to kids in the field. And like also noticing again, like the diet they were getting, a lot of sugar. I was like, this doesn't make sense. So being in that, early 20s stage, I was like, we're going to do something about this. Let's see what else is possible.
It's nice that you were so able to be so proactive. I guess that speaks to the severity of how you were feeling.
I could no longer live the way I was living. I would just have a lot of pain after every meal.
It's so funny because I hear people and they're like, oh, I can't have cheese, but I eat it anyway and I just suffer. And I was like, do you? I just don't eat cheese.
It's interesting how people relate to food in particular, but to pain and what they're willing to accept and what feels like a red flag. Like,
yeah,
it's different for different people.
But I mean, and the alternative cheeses are so much better these days. Like when I stopped being able to eat cheese, it was really bad. It was some like rice cheese, but it was disgusting. So I didn't eat anything, and now we've got these really good cheese. They're not like real cheese, but they're cheese like enough, and they're tasty. So I was just like, yes, please. We've come a long way.
You really have.
Yeah. So
I was back to that moment, to this moment in Whole Foods, actually, in Boulder, and I was like asking the people that worked in the cheese section if they had any alternative cheese, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, never mind, I'm in the wrong place.
Making that connection and decision at a relatively young age too, though, like I feel like a lot of people, would either just keep, especially in the hubris of the 20s, pushing through regardless of feeling bad, and then even end up in a worse situation, or just spiral into the conventional medicine route, which has its place, but up to a point where, maybe they weren't being proactive enough for their own advocacy as you were being. So it's good on you to be able to shift your life direction like that at such a time.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of health conditions that like just aren't met.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place, like you said, for pharmaceuticals and Western medicine, and sometimes it's just total miss. And that's where I felt like I was sitting. And I'm grateful, very grateful that was the moment I had the freedom to shift. And I moved I was living in the Asheville area at the time, and I went to Colorado for school.
So you moved all the way across the country.
I knew that I wanted to really focus on how to treat clients, and clinical herbalism is that. And so I found out about the North American Institute of Medical Herbalism and talked to the owner, Paul Bergner, and it was just like a clear yes from our friend Paul that's where I needed to be. So I moved, and he was like, "Thank you for coming out here from Asheville, where you had a lot of choices to study plants, and there's so many angles of herbalism, and they're all really, really cool and have an important place and role to play." And I was talking about this recently, like there's a essence of like a more earth quality in Asheville, and there is more of a focus. The herbalists here are more focused on the growing and the medicine making, and that part of the journey of the medicine, of the plant medicine. And then, further along, like making products and maybe selling as a big company to other herbalists, and then those herbalists that are treating, receiving that medicine and treating clients and humans. So there's like this progression. And in the olden days, we didn't have the ability to resource with each other, and an herbalist did all parts, which is awesome. And it doesn't usually look that way today.
Right. There's more specialization. There's people who make products, usually don't necessarily see clients, do herbal consultations, but not always. So what was the first herb you felt you really connected to, and why?
My first really deep herbal connection was marshmallow root. Althea officinalis. And that was when I was still working in the woods and hurting. But I had begun to explore herbalism for as my own healing path. I hadn't quite made the step away, and I had a consultation with an herbalist, and she recommended a few things. And just to kind of get me through that last summer, I was infusing marshmallow root, cold infusion. Another good reason why we chose this herb for me is because of it being easy for me to set up each night in the field. Before I got in my sleeping bag, I could just pour cool water. I didn't have to heat the water. So I'd let it set up overnight while I was sleeping, and then drink the next day throughout the day. And it was a game changer. I took a few other herbs and a few probiotics, but and I know that they all helped. The herbs were more in the nervine category. Mm-hmm. But this marshmallow was so soothing and cooling to my hot, inflamed pain and irritability in my guts. So, and I really felt that. And this is something that is part of your, if you do study plants formally or informally, to use what we call simple which is just a single herb. That way you can really isolate that this experience I'm getting is from this herb. And you can really have a deeper connection with the plant medicine and the spirit of the plant. And so for me, as an early student at that time and just someone in need, that marshmallow was so good. I think that also was a big part of keeping me sustained on my clear vision that this is going to be a good path. Like, this works. And mind you, like, nothing else had been offered. Well, a medicine was offered and it did nothing. So I hadn't really had anything work yet.
Definitely enough to make you go, whoa, there's something to this.
Especially when we grow up with doctors and, you know, taught that their medicine is so strong, and that herbal medicine has this reputation of being weak and, I think, ineffective. I think many people still feel that way. Then you have this experience and you're like, well, maybe there's something actually to this. And it's hard to be on that road where you come to the end of it and you're still in so much pain, and then there's no medicine being offered. You're like, what do I do? I got to find a different road, I guess, you know, and you did. But of course, herbs are what people used for health for all these years. And so, of course, that they do actually do something.
Actually work. This fluffy white stuff, this fluffy white root, it really works. And we need to have those experiences. I think a lot of healers, herbalists, doctors too, like they turn to medicine because they've had their own problems, and they're looking for something or seeking something. And I think, like, I know I was seeking something, and I think the plants were calling me in. I cherish that I had that experience. It helps me really build confidence.
You mentioned where you did your primary schooling. What was your favorite part of your herbal education journey?
The school is around, but it has a new name and a new owner, so it's a little bit different. But what was the North American Institute of Medical Herbalism, it's now called the Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism. It's now run and owned by a woman named Lisa Ganora, and it's an excellent school and highly recommend it. And it's still based on the principles of Vitalism, and that is a favorite part. So the principle of Vitalism is we have a vital force, and that essentially vital force is the term in this school of herbal medicine that it can be translated to chi or prana. So it's like this invisible energy that has the power to heal and, like, kind of flows through and creates this indistinguishable quality of life that is not quite the blood or not quite anything that we can kind of touch or look at, but it activates the power of healing. And there's also life force in nature. This is what got me on the phone call with Paul Bergner when I called to ask about the school. I was like, what is Vitalism? And he told me about the Mount St. Helen eruption, and how that created like a mountain of black, and it destroyed all the plants and all the trees. Total devastation. And over the years, it started to grow back. Plants reemerged, and the mountain healed, and the earth healed. And it wasn't particularly healed by man. It was just an energy and a force, a life force within the planet to regenerate. And nowadays I'm using that word, and I think it is a little bit more explains itself. The earth regenerates. We are the earth. We are creatures of the earth, and we have that power, that vital force to also regenerate. And when we use herbs in Vitalist herbalism, we think about it just a little bit differently. It's not like, what herb can I take to soothe inflammation or to address the symptom, but rather, how can I take herbs, a collection of herbs and foods and potentially, nutrients that are missing, to create that vital force flow and have the body heal itself.
Which is, I assume then it's kind of tailoring it more to the individual you're working with, because you could give the same herb to 10 different people and potentially get 10 different variations in response.
Yes, that's another key thing. And it's like an alchemy of the person meets the plant. And both of those like sides of the equation of the alchemy have a unique energy. Whereas I think, in a more pharmaceutical model, it's thought of like human as just more machine-like, inert, and then there's this like active substance that comes and will do a expected result. And we know that equation is a little more, it's more wild and unique per person. There is certainly not an inert quality to humans. So we're working to build that life force in the right direction. So kind of an example I think of is, if someone has a lot of fatigue, certainly I would not just go in and give an adaptogen. If I'm sitting down having a consult, that's the easy thing if you like ask me and I have like a minute to answer, but a deeper dive and a true herbal consult would be to explore the life picture. And it may very well be that that person isn't sleeping well, or, and for whatever cause, why is that person not sleeping well? So that would be a discussion, and potentially the supportive herb would be passion flower to help them rest and regenerate at night as they are meant to, which can bring a result that they desire, which is more energy the next day.
Well, I definitely don't feel inert.
Yeah, we have so much life power, and it's really a matter of like channeling it the right direction. Thing too, every reaction or symptom, what we call symptom, is a life power, a life force speaking. And it's not usually comfortable, and that's the point. Like, it's speaking to us with this energy, and trying to call for an action from us.
Appreciate that approach. A person might come to you and think, this is my symptom and this must be my problem. And you're like, well, wait, let's look at more pieces of the puzzle here, because maybe if you're helping this thing over here, which was potentially the root of all of it, it'll have that trickle down effect, and the thing you thought you were coming for will improve, but it was improved inadvertently because you were fixing this thing over here, because you, like, the sleep example you gave, maybe it was really that all along kind of thing. So that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
How long have you had a clinical practice, Christina?
So I have been seeing clients since my second year. If I count my second year of study, was 2005. So that would be 20 years that I have seen clients. And yet I have done many other things in between. So I have also owned a product company, and I've worked for other companies, and I've worked at a lot of herb shops. The form of my clinical practice has definitely had different shapes over the years. But it's been 20 years that I have been practicing in some form. And I've always had clients as part of that configuration, but I may have also been focusing on making castor oil kits. I did that for a while, and I've worked in some incredible herb shops and apothecaries.
On your journey, has there been an herbalist who has really inspired and supported you along your path? Or do you have anyone you would consider a mentor?
I think mentors are incredibly valuable. I had a mentor early on that I think helped a lot as I was getting my ground and my feet solid as an herbalist, that I want to reference and give thanks to. And that was Shelley Torgrove in Denver, Colorado. They all challenged all of us to grow and to think differently. She did some of that, and also she was embodying a lot of bravery as an herbalist, and her shop was unique, very awesome and unique, because we had tons of herbs. We had the bulk tea herbs, but we also had bulk tincture. And that bulk tincture collection of 80 herbs
wow.
in 32-ounce bottles is on the shelf and available for customers to come in and get a formula, a personalized blend, and do like a mini consult with anyone that walks in. Herbalism is like illegal, like there's a lot of legislation around it, and that can make some people really nervous. And she was really there and ready to serve and be bold about that, and I admire that greatly. She was a great businesswoman as well as a great herbalist, and sometimes those two do not come together in one person. So I took a lot from that quality of her personality and that necessary unity. I learned so much, and she had on staff very well trained people, herbalists that studied with either Paul Bergner or Michael Moore, and we all taught each other, and we would blend and we would write in a book the blends, and we always knew what questions to ask for clearing any contraindications, and then she would review the books, double check that everything was going well, and maybe come and chat with us about her thoughts. But it caused me to learn so much, and it caused me to have experience in watching someone experience a formula or an herb, and then they would come back and say that worked. That was huge, and it helped me build more of that confidence and connection to the plants. And outside of what you learn in a book, that's just theory. But then you get to apply it, and great to do it on your own body. But then to see it again and again with other people, it adds to in your bones of like, this is true. This is true. This isn't just a one-time fluke. This is a truth about this plant. That shop is still there. It's called Apothecary Tinctura.
Tinctura.
Tinctura. Yes, it's a hard one for everyone to say, but everyone managed to find their way in. They were like, there was a magic in that shop. They would walk in and just like take a pause with all of the herbs, and just what we were doing there was special. And it's still there. It has a new owner, and Shelly has another shop called Artemisia and Rue. So that's going to be definitely a magical place too. If you're in the Denver area, you probably might already know about those shops. But those are special places. And Shelly's an amazing teacher, but she's still teaching.
That's such an awesome, and definitely I would say probably unique approach for sure to having a space. I lived in St. Louis for about a decade, and there was a shop there called Cheryl's Herbs that had been around, I know, a long time, because I worked with a woman at a little local health food store there of the boomer generation, and she had been going to Cheryl's Herbs since like she was in college. And then here I am in my 20s, and she's, old enough to be my mother, and she's talking about Cheryl's Herbs, and it was like a cornerstone in the community in the little borough that it was in. But she did a similar thing where I think over the years maybe she pulled back consulting when it came to formulas for like legal reasons. But if you had researched or you had worked with somebody who gave you a suggestion and you were like, I need this specific blend, they would make it for you and they would keep it on file. I mean, it would be like Ellen's kidney tonic or, whatever, like, and you could reorder it anytime you wanted, and, or, come up with something new. And they had like a lot of, bulk stuff you could just walk in and buy as well. They made their own soaps and shampoos and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I always thought that was like such a cool model where it was much more getting the individual involved in the formulating in a way a little bit more, and just making it seem more real maybe than just a typical exchange at a pharmacy or a grocery store or something would be. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It adds an extra power, like, to talk to someone who's experienced and say, I'm going to make this custom herbal formula for you. I don't know, somehow also just energetically, you're like, oh, wow, this is for me. It might make it work better.
We don't have a shop like that here in Asheville, which I think that would be really cool. But we do have the French Broad Food Co-op has the bulk herb room. Mm-hmm. And I know every time I walk in there, I'm like, So I definitely can understand what it might feel like to walk into one of those shops. It's just amazing to see all those herbs just on the shelf. And it's like, I can get them and I can use them. something about all those shelves of herbs and spices and things. And yeah, we definitely need more of that.
It's funny you say that, Jennifer, because I think about, like, this is just a very strange aside, but for years, I mean, I'd say since I was 15 years old, like, and started my interest in all of this stuff, I've loved that image of, like, the wall of little apothecary drawers full of all the stuff, you know? And I had always dreamed that, like, one day I would find an old, like, library card catalog thing or something that I could repurpose for that, right? That has become such a thing. Like, I guess it's because of witch talk. I don't know. Like, the earliness of everything online has exploded in the last decade plus. That by the time I'm in a situation in my life where it's like maybe I could, like, have a space or be able to afford, like, creating something like that in my house, and I'm scanning, looking like, oh, well, there's probably just old ones in antique stores or used, and they'll be like crazy prices because they are so trendy right now, and it's just so but I wonder what that's saying, almost in some sort of primitive sense, that, like, because I think the aesthetic of it, you know, a lot of people want the aesthetic of it for the same reason that it interested me, that sort of like kid in the candy shop only for herbs feeling. And what is that saying about culture if it's, like, become this thing where so many people are just like, you know, you could argue about, like, well, you're an herbalist, doesn't matter what furniture you have, like, that aside, what is it about it that's like that aesthetic that's calling to people, that people are like, yes, we just need these plants surrounding us, you know?
I think it's more than aesthetic. Aesthetic is like an end product, that it's pretty, but I think it goes deeper than pretty. And it's been in your system and your heart since you were a child. And I think that is a deep resonance, like, from your past and from our lineage as humans, and how deep our connection with plants goes. And that it's like a memory that is being plugged. And it's like, I don't know why, but I want this. Yeah, and that is something so cool to follow. And I think it speaks to how deep and old our relationships with plants, and how special it is, and, like, the resource that offers. Like, I think that's the awe part. This is so much medicine, so much healing. Wow, I'm shocked. I'm like, and it's a beautiful thing. I think getting started, that can be intimidating, and I think just getting started with a few herbs that you can put on a shelf, any shelf, and then you build it over time.
The glass jar look too, because then it's like you can see all the pretty herbs. You're not looking at a big wall of wooden drawers. You can see them. Ooh.
Exactly.
I'm looking for a picture of the French Bud Food Co-op's herb wall. I think I can put it on the video. Yeah, I just love how they look in those jars. I've got yarrow that I dried, and I stuffed it into this big mason jar with the, the little umbels. It's just the stalk and the flowers, and I'm like, oh, it looks so good. But I have to keep it in this cabinet because it's in a clear jar.
So, like a romance. They're so beautiful, and we're attracted to them. So.
Christina, this is a question we like to ask all of our guests, because we do a lot of book reviews and we love to read. So what are some of your favorite herbal plant books that you like to recommend to people, or for that matter, just any books having to deal with the natural world and humanity's relation to it? Because obviously with your previous work in wilderness guiding and so forth, you have a tie-in there as well.
I would recommend In Search of Medicine Buddha by David Crow. that is a great book, and it's like a journey into Tibet and the ancient history of medicine there. But it highlights like how everything in nature is medicine. Right now, I think we are really scared of nature. We are afraid because we don't know. We are afraid of toxic berries and mushrooms, and it's legitimate if you don't know to take care. But because of that, we've like come back into our buildings and tried to really insulate ourselves from nature, and yet it has so much value to us on all these levels. On the level of plant medicine, yes, but also just like connection with the essence of nature, the essence of a tree. That is more of a storybook. My favorite guidebook it's called The Desktop Herbal by Brigitte Mars. It is wonderful. It's like just an alphabetical materia medica, and it's just more like data points, and goes into one of the things she does really well is she tells all the names of this herb that you're looking up, and that always tells a story. Different cultures have different names for their plants, and so getting that gives you a sense of their personality.
Is it almost dictionary-esque in a way if you're just point by point looking up? I guess starting with what alphabetized by Latin botanical name, but then she gives all the common names, which is where you see the history and so forth pop out.
It's alphabetized by common name, and there's a term that we use. It's just called a materia medica, and it's a Latin word, and it just means the collection of herbs and a description of certain categories for each herb, including their constituents and their medicinal actions and their contraindications. And so some of those categories are like essential to all materia medica, but some people go a little bit deeper in their book, maybe the constituents part, or someone's going deeper in like the history, or so they vary because there's so much that could be said about each herb, what that author has chosen to put in. That's why you need many materia medica dictionary-like books, and that's one of my favorites. I learn a lot from that book all the time. Then also Henry Lindlar's Nature Cure. It's more of an old-timey book from the 1800s. That speaks to more of what I was speaking earlier about the vital force and how to do what might be called biohacking now, like looking at the sunrise, stepping on the earth in the morning dew, and how some of that affects our body's healing capacity.
Nice.
It's fun to look into these old books and be like, wow, that's still true, and they're still talking about that today, but more like from a science perspective. Biohacking, we're calling it something different, but still the same principles. That's basically awesome. The more connected to nature we are, the healthier we'll be.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to mention and sort of keep to the surface older texts and stuff like that too, because in our modern time, when everything's such a soundbite practically, a lot doesn't just get lost or disconnected. But I think a lot of times it's getting increasingly harder for people to necessarily trust what they're reading, trust even what they're feeling or experiencing. And if you have something like that existed before everything was trendy and like very much of its time and encapsulated that way, and you can still, as you said, find things in it where you're like, oh, that's still true today. It's almost like it in itself is like a grounding point for reality.
Also, I'm interested in eco-psychology or ecotherapy, as they're calling it. Some of those books contain practices rather than telling you things. Sit with a tree and do an exercise, and I think we need that in this day and age of disconnect and high-tech life.
Is there a book that has them in there, or?
There are many.
There are many. Okay.
Recommendation, but just that category of psychology.
So you could just look that up. Okay.
Yeah, and it's something that I've done with groups here locally, and I'm going to start doing again, which is sitting with an herb, a single herb, without any knowledge about it, and just tapping into what we might intuit this herb is about. And it's essentially just like making guesses at first, but tapping into intuition. And then you take the herb and you ingest it as a tincture, as a tea, and then you notice where it's going. And so a really more intimate relationship starts to develop. And again, you're exploring your own experience rather than what a book or someone else has told you. And we're bringing that back. So that's a really valuable skill and experience. You might find an herb that you really resonate with, but also it's like a meditation.
This is always a hard one to ask. We usually have phrased this question: what are your favorite herbs if you had to pick? Let's try it this way. What are like 5 top herbs that you always keep on hand?
I always keep chamomile and lemon balm and ashwagandha and reishi. I'd say my 5th top herb is definitely a medicinal, but it's also culinary, rosemary. And I'm Italian, and that's an important herb for our cooking. And just always in the front yard of my parents' house, and ideally at my house too, but definitely in the cupboard.
And then how do you normally like to take those herbs?
Chamomile tea is the best. For me, picture is kind of funny with chamomile. So classic as a tea. Same with, well, lemon balm is really versatile. I love all forms of lemon balm, essential oil, tincture, tea, and topically as well. Also, those two are amazing because they are so gentle. They are nourishing and safe, and good for kids and good for digestion, which is how I came into this path of herbalism. And whenever I work with clients, I always start with digestion. Reishi, oh gosh, lately it's been a capsule, but I've done a lot of crock pot reishi. The ease of a capsule is very nice, and you can get a known higher dose. What else did I say? Oh, and ashwagandha, I use that as a powder. Sometimes I'll mix it with ghee and put it inside of a date.
Ooh.
Sometimes shatavari and ashwagandha mixed, but usually it's ashwagandha stirred in with ghee inside of a date. I learned that an Ayurvedic class, and it's delicious. You should try it.
It makes me think of the things for like your pets, the pill pockets, for animal to take the medicine. It's like a human pill pocket. Just eat a date. That's great.
Yeah.
Just
Well, usually it's kind of my lazy way because there's a thing called like where you soak the dates in the ghee. But I never get around to like sitting and soaking them. I just slap it on there, and then the delivery of the powdered herbs inside of ghee is recommended in Ayurveda to mix herbs with honey or with ghee. That's how that all came together.
So you could do date, honey, and ashwagandha as well.
Yeah, that would be incredibly sweet.
That would be. That might be too sweet. Yeah.
And rosemary. Rosemary goes in my food a lot. Although every now and then I'll put rosemary in a tea, and it's really good to stimulate the brain and just stay in that awake, but not like a stressy awake state, but brighten things and clear my head.
Hello, everybody. It's time for the herb quiz. It's me and my cat here, Eugene. And we are here to announce the winners of, it's going to be, I guess, it's been delayed. So I'm announcing the winners, and we're going to officially call it the February 2026 winners, even though everyone voted months ago. But going forward, it should be more regular. And so this is for podcast swag, buttons, stickers. I've got all kinds of swag, magnets, things like that. Once you win the swag, you will then be entered into another drawing, which is the big yearly drawing, where you get a bunch of awesome local herbal products sent to you. Let's get to it. Let me get up my wheel. This is my wheel. This is everybody who entered. Here was the prompt. Soft furry leaves like velvet green, bell-shaped blooms in purple cream. Old healers swore I sped the mend. I help what's broken find its end. What am I? And the answer is comfrey. These are all the people that correctly guessed the answer. Yay! I'm going to give this wheel a spin, and we'll see who wins. All right. Yay! Medical Woods Botanicals, you have won. And I'll get in contact with you for your dress so you can send you your swag. And now you're entered into the big drawing. Woohoo! So now we are going to do the prompt for March. So everybody, you can enter in the comments of this video. You can enter in, if you're listening on Spotify, there are comments on Spotify, Facebook. Yeah, there's lots of places to enter. Instagram, you can enter. This is the prompt and the visual clue for this month's herb. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Instagram, and you can go to Facebook to see it. The YouTube will be YouTube short. Okay, here's the prompt. I wear a crown of golden light, then turns to stars in fluffy white. A single breath can set me free to dance upon the wandering breeze. What am I? All right, so that's your herb quiz clue. Good luck to everyone. And you have until deadline will be March 20th, 2026 to get your guesses in. All right, thank you very much, and good luck. Back to the podcast. So tell us a little bit more about your practice. You did mention some of the health concerns that you did focus on, but can you tell us a little bit more? And then what made you want to focus on women's health issues?
So I work mostly with women. I love working with anyone, but that has become a trajectory for me, and I'd say because of that herb shop in Denver. And I knew I wanted to work there, and it just so happened to be a focus at that herb shop. And she studied with a woman named Miss Beatrice and Rosita Arvigo, and they do something called Maya abdominal massage. And this is a type of healing abdominal body work that helps to relax all the tension in the pelvis, working all the ligaments and tendons that hold the uterus, and often it's held out of place from life events, falling off a horse, or getting like kicked in the gut, or surgeries, or pregnancies. So just, life happening really can shift the uterus out of alignment, and then there's something called they kind of get stuck together. So that's called an adhesion. Organs get like almost like Velcroed together in the wrong place. Yeah, it's wild. Hence, like my focus on castor oil for a while, that helps to relax and release those adhesions. So the massage also does help. It's a massage to relax and bring the organ of the uterus back into its centralized alignment. And that makes life a whole lot easier and reproductive health more vital and effective. So that can be from your menstrual cycle experience all the way to fertility and pregnancy experience. And I just watched. I worked in the clinic, and it was a shop and clinic. So I watched all of that happening with the clinicians, and kind of couldn't help but become enchanted by it all, and seeing how effective it was, and the transformations, and that was just like, I was in the thick of that world, women's health, and it was inspiring. So that led me to it initially. And gosh, I also had my own health challenges in that area. And so same with digestion, you know, we kind of learned so much about what we have to learn to heal ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely true, and took me more towards the specialization of the microbiome and the female microbiome. And it's such an exciting field right now because it's evolving and changing, and we're learning so much about how it can benefit our wellness overall, including reproduction outcomes. So that's like kind of the line and trajectory of my experience. And there's so much need for it. Also, I feel like it's kind of underserved and really common and not normal to have such pain with your cycle and to have such hormonal imbalance, and then going into menopause, like feeling a total wreck. And so it's been normalized, and I think we're just all working to help change that and heal one woman at a time. UTIs, BV, HPV, yeah, those are really scary too, really scary. And again, like I was mentioning from my own experience, not a lot of offers that work from doctors. And so usually herbalists get people that have tried other things, like they've already been to the doctor, and then they're like, now what? So they're looking for something, and they're trying anything, and they're like, why don't I try this herbalist?
Yeah, I think I heard somewhere that like a lot of the clinical trials are just for even stuff for women are they just do this with white men. So
Yeah, it wasn't until I think the 90s that women were required in human clinical trials.
which is pretty crazy. And a lot of the things like fibroids, a lot of women have, and they're just like, oh, they're not an issue because, you know, but they cause so many issues. And they're like, well, we don't even know. I think it's like 50% of women. I don't know. It's a large percentage. What?
I remember looking it up whenever I was first diagnosed with one in like 2020 or 2021, but it's something like 80% of women over 35 are probably going to end up with a fibroid. And that, you know, maybe it stays the size of a pea, you know, who knows? But some people end up with like them the freaking size of a basketball. And you can't tell me that's not impacting somebody's day, you know, like, yeah, it's nice that they can be like, well, they're benign, so we're not terribly concerned. But it's just like, then there's not enough further talk about like, you know, outside of like, well, you know, you can surgically or do other methods to, you know, medically remove them if you want or need be. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, how did we even get to that point? Like, given the lack of data on women's health historically, it's like, was this always a problem to this degree in women? Are we seeing more of it now? What are your thoughts, Christina, in terms of if it's so prevalent, regardless of if it's always been so prevalent, like what potentially in your theories might be behind it? Because I feel like that's one where the establishment just is like, I don't know, people just form them.
Yeah, and they're just like,
Not called the problem. I don't know. That's about all they tell you.
It's a bit dismissive, and so I feel that for anyone, for you, that experiencing that in your past or still today, it's really hard. And we can just talk to each other sometimes and laugh, but you know, what about the change in results and healing? So I think that it is way more common. And the cause would have a couple different parts to it, but we have a lot of plastics in our environment and in our kitchens and in every single part of our experience, from body care and food storage and water. And you know, even if you're doing good and you're like going and getting like protein powder or collagen, they're finding that most of those products have microplastics. And plastics boost estrogen. And it's a xenoestrogen, so it adds to this load of experience of estrogen. And that's what builds and creates a burden on the system. It's what builds a fibroid, is too much estrogen. And then on the other side, there's the liver, which also connected to a higher level of things, toxins and pollutants that we are exposed to more and more and more and more and more and more. A little bit here, a little bit there, to a degree that our livers just can't handle doing their job effectively anymore. And so they're struggling to clear estrogen, and then estrogen is higher and dominant due to the plastics and other things. So that creates this cycle and this dynamic that leads to more menstrual issues and fibroids and a lot of other things. So yeah, it's part of our current cultural world and global world that we need to make changes to in terms of lifestyle, and it really starts with us. When you look at making a big change of taking plastics out of our life, it feels overwhelming, but we can really just start at home and make a shift away from exposing ourselves to plastic as much as possible in the sanctuary space of like your day-to-day. So you're going to be exposed to a lot of stuff on the wider outskirts of your life out in the world that you can't control. So just starting close to home, and then also building up our ability to detoxify. And that is many different organ systems, the liver being a primary one. Nourishing the liver health is a great way to work on hormonal health rather than like Vitex or hormonal herbs. We really want to go back to getting the liver doing its clearance and getting the liver, the skin also open and clearing all of the extra emergency toxins that it's trying to spit out. Also the colon, and a lot of folks have constipation, and whether it's extreme or minor, it's not good no matter what. And then that holds stool, and then that stool holds estrogen, and then it gets reabsorbed into the system before it exits.
It's definitely not an angle I hear talked about much at all, as the digestive / hormonal connection. That's a really good point.
We were talking before the podcast, Ellen and I have fibroids, and I had no idea what they were until I went in for just a regular pap smear. I went to Planned Parenthood because I didn't have any insurance, and they're like, "You're dilated." They thought I was pregnant, and I was like, "I can't be pregnant. There's no way," because I was in a literal long distance relationship, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen. How's that going to happen?" As far as I know, it doesn't happen when you talk on the phone. So, so it was a big fibroid, and I just didn't know anything about it. I had surgery, and then apparently I wasn't able to. Then another health condition came in right after on top of it, which was so devastating to me. This other health condition that I couldn't address the issue of maybe developing more fibroids. So I never was able to address that. Never had the money either to go medically or herbally, because unfortunately going to see an herbalist is also very expensive. I now have another big one because I was never able to address those issues. And it's interesting when you just say, just take out the plastic. Like I'm thinking, yeah, so I use glass containers, but I also use plastic baggies. And I was like, oh, so that's something that I can do, even though now it's big and I'm making the choice of actually taking a medication to put my body into menopause temporarily, because I'm not quite old enough yet. I'm almost there, just to shrink it, and I'm nervous about that, but I'm having a lot of issues with my menstrual cycle. I'm almost debilitated for it's so heavy. I'm almost debilitated for like 3 or 4 days, and then I'm so tired afterwards, and so it's just really impacting my life. And I just really wish that there was some support, like right after that surgery, or even before, like so it wouldn't have developed, because my estrogen is very high. I don't know if I was always naturally high, because that could happen too. Like it just added into this mix of microplastics and all kinds of other stuff. I heard that babies have it. It's in breast milk. It's just like everywhere. Like it's crazy. I could just think about like my health and my health issues, and if there was just like a different system, I would have never developed some of these things. And right now the answer is not to have another surgery. For me, like I'm like that, you can't just keep having like, oh, we'll just have another surgery. I'm just like, no. Yeah, we definitely need more information and more education, especially if like 80% of women have these. And I had these issues and I had no idea before. I was like, I've never heard of it. I never heard of it before. I got Rosemary Gladstar's women's health book. That was the only herb book that I found with a lot of information on fibroids and a lot of information on endometriosis, which I don't think I have. But
I feel you on what to do in the conundrum of our own health journey, and sometimes we have to do what we don't want to, or we choose to do what we'd rather not do. And I could also just kind of pulling out of what you shared, that I wish for change around is the cost of care. And
oh yeah, it's just
the cost of care is such a barrier. And whether that's like just seeing an herbalist that's outside, that's not covered by insurance, or doing something bigger with like a functional health doctor.
yes.
Their plans are very elaborate and very expensive, and it's not good right now that that's only available to people that have a ton of extra money. So I wish for that to change.
Yes, it's a whole nother aspect of why people are not as healthy as maybe they could be.
Well, to balance out that all in a lighter capacity, maybe, are there any inspiring success stories you've had from aiding clients over all these years that you could share without obviously divulging too much personal information?
I just had a client just a couple days ago share with me that her cycle has completely shifted, and she was, I don't know if she's ever experienced a cycle without debilitating pain for at least one day, kind of leave work, or just like she has kids and she just had to exit the situation she was in and go home and go to bed. And there's just far too many women in that boat. And so she had a healing result really soon, in just a matter of a couple of weeks, within one cycle. And then she got her menstrual cycle and had a fully different experience where there was no possible day to do
wow.
that. And it was just like, she was nervous to claim that this changed because she's just not used to it. And it was just so amazing to hear her story and celebrate that with her. So, there's different paths, and sometimes it goes quick and sometimes it goes slow, but and then sometimes there's just different levels and layers. So you never know, but when something can change quickly, that's pretty awesome. But not always the case. And I also am impressed with my clients that just stick with it. And I know that that's not easy, but essential, especially if something's been chronic for a while. I feel like I play an important role in holding them on the path and that journey when there's kind of meandering and dips in your confidence in your journey, and if this is ever going to work, or if you're just too far gone, and all of that. And so I think I play an important role in helping hold people to their commitment to their health and change, and knowing that it's unknown when and where that moment, not usually, where that time of transformation will be, but it is inevitable as long as we are continuing to nurture and make change and we get somewhere. There's no way we can get to a higher level of health if we're needing our wellness in some way.
Well, and you've had your own personal experiences to know at heart that stick-to-itiveness can pay off. And I think that always helps, for people to hear it from somebody who's like, listen, I've been there. And then they can hang on and be like, okay, well, if you say so, I'll keep trying,
And there's a lot of emotional pieces to that. And that's why I like to work with flower essences to keep the journey of healing going. And
I think it's important to have somebody there to help you give you some support, because I heard it this way: is it took you a long time to get sick to get to this point, and it may take you a similar amount of time to get back to your health. Not guaranteed. It could be different, but it's like you didn't get here overnight. So sometimes the journey back to better health is not overnight. And but as long as you're making progress, I feel like that's always encouraging. One last question before we wrap up. What personal practices do you have that help you stay grounded and connected to the natural world?
Yeah, I love swimming and hiking. So swimming in rivers and hiking, those are just like definitely standbys that keep me connected. And let's see, I love making medicine, even though I don't always make medicine in a commercial sense. I like making small batches for myself. I love tapping into the seasonal changes and always like recognizing, noticing the subtle change in like the mid-summer, the late summer, and just like really relishing the parts of that I enjoy and noticing like the coming of fall. I also enjoy learning some of like the lore and historical practices that people that once were more connected to the earth that they did. So bringing in a evergreen in Christmas, winter time, which we do with the tree, but even anything that we're bringing in to decorate the house is helping us to connect and bring nature inside, which we don't have a lot of green at that time. So it helps this, like I said, this relationship with nature and with plants to help keep it alive.
Is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye? Just didn't that.
Yeah, how do people look you up and find your services?
Oh yeah, that's important.
Yeah, you can look me up. My website now is my name, ChristinaBertelli.com. And you can connect with me through the contact form. You can read a little bit more about my work, and you can also book consultations there. And I am also on Instagram at Fembotanica. That's FEMMEBOTANIC.
Okay. And I'll put the links also in the description so that
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll be easily findable.
Yeah, and I would say that I would love to share this. As we've talked about, I focus a lot on women's health and pelvic health, and we did get into the detoxification piece and how relevant that is for hormonal balance and our immune system. And some of my personal journey, which, as you've heard in my story, always leads to my next specialty and focus for how I can serve other people. And I've learned so much recently about mold and mycotoxins, as well as histamines and something called MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome. So if that's something that you are struggling with and not getting the answers that you need, please feel free to reach out to me on that level. And I know that in our particular area, we've had a lot of rain and rain damage to buildings, which inevitably leads to the mycotoxins. And it can be so confusing to identify and separate, that from other illnesses or conditions, just like allergies or depression. And it's very mysterious. So if you suspect that is going on, please reach out to me.
We'd like to thank Christina for joining us today. And I'll put all of Christina's links in the description. And as well as I'll put on all of our links. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. And if you want to support this podcast, you can subscribe to our Patreon at $1, $5, or $10 a month. You can buy us a coffee for a one-time donation of $5. Or you can just like, subscribe, follow, comment. All of that really helps support us. And we really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone next time. All right. So
Thanks for listening.
bye.